The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
This is Florida Man News, the worst headlines from the Sunshine State on the Florida Podcast Network. I'm your host, Joel Lounds. Coming up in this episode, Florida man flogs a cop with a flying frankfurter. Florida woman was a post-Soviet spin doctor, but now she peddles propaganda for a different dictator. Florida man drops trou while evading arrest. And Florida man's escape is thwarted by a defective jetski. Plus Florida man trivia and much, much more. Our lead story tonight. A Florida man was arrested Friday for driving a stolen pickup truck to a Space Force base in Brevard County in what he called a mission from the President of the United States. The 29-year-old man from Ocala told deputies he'd taken a Ford F-150 without the owner's permission 3 days before driving to Patrick Space Force Base, formerly Patrick Air Force Base, located south of Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral. The Florida man told deputies he didn't know who owned the vehicle. Upon investigation, detectives discovered the vehicle was stolen from Riviera Beach, which is 235 miles away from the Florida man's home in Ocala and 125 miles from Patrick Space Force Base. Brevard County deputies say when the Florida man tried to get on the base, he claimed to be warning the government about a fight happening between Chinese dragons and U.S. aliens. The Florida man did not specify what type of aliens were fighting on behalf of the United States or what planet or star system they are from. As we are not yet a warp-capable species, it is likely not Vulcans, and at this point in the timeline, Klingons are not allied with any Earth governments. Given the U.S.'s predilection for hiring mercenary forces to fight unsanctioned wars, Florida Man News speculates that the most likely candidates are Mandalorian bounty hunters or the Kree Empire, although the latter are currently involved in their own war with the Skrulls, and the former have experience combating dragons such as the Krayt Dragons of Tatooine. The Florida man also told deputies he was sent by the President of the U.S. to give the warning, and that in his mind he heard the President tell him to steal the vehicle. The report did not indicate who exactly the Florida man thinks is the President. Patrick Space Force Base is no stranger to conspiracy theories involving aliens. Some of their planes were involved in the search for wreckage from Flight 19, 5 U.S. Navy bombers lost over the Bermuda Triangle during a training mission in December 1945, whose loss was attributed in the subsequent report as, quote, cause unknown, unquote. The Florida man is facing charges for grand theft of a motor vehicle. In R2 delinquent news, a Florida man was arrested after deputies said he posed as a Walt Disney World cast member and took a Star Wars R2-D2 droid in the hopes that Disney's security would hire him. The 44-year-old Florida man from Kissimmee, a wretched hive of scum and villainy, is facing a grand theft charge and a charge of obstruction by false information, according to an arrest affidavit. The Orange County Sheriff's Office says on May 31st, deputies were called to the Swan Reserve Hotel by Disney Security. When they arrived, they made contact with the Florida man, who they say was wearing beige work pants, an orange work vest, and a Disney name tag. He reportedly identified himself as David Rogers at first and said he worked in the receiving division of the Yacht Club Resort. The affidavit states that Disney Security stopped the Florida man because he was seen by hotel security pushing a cart on the property, and it looked suspicious. The officer offered to help the Florida man with the cart and said that he appeared confused as to how to get to the loading dock and what the hotel's proper procedures are. That's when deputies were called to the hotel. The Florida man reportedly told deputies that part of his job is to move items from one location to the other and that his boss's name is James McDaniels. Security said they have no record of anyone named David Rogers working for Disney, and that McDaniels works in California. A deputy escorted the Florida man to the yacht club resort to retrieve his belongings and driver's license from the employee lockers, but says the Florida man appeared to be lost and confused and failed to open the locker. The deputy then reportedly noticed that the Florida man had a wallet on him and asked him if he had his ID in the wallet. The Florida man showed him the ID, which revealed that he was, in fact, the droid thief they were looking for. The Florida man reportedly admitted to moving the R2-D2 droid from the third floor of the hotel to an unknown location and a game machine because he had an application for a security job pending at Walt Disney World and wanted to, quote, show weakness in the security of the resorts in the hope of securing a better paying job at Walt Disney World, unquote. The deputy said the Florida man told him he had no intention of taking the items off property. Disney officials did not confirm if the droid contained detailed plans for a spherical, moon-sized battle station. In Stinker Tyrant Spokesman Spy news, a spokesperson for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in June registered as a foreign agent of a former president of the country of Georgia, Mikheil Saakashvili, belatedly detailing work she performed for the politician between 2018 and 2020. The spokeswoman, Christina Pushaw, made the disclosure following contact from the Justice Department, according to her attorney, Michael Sherwin. She began her work in 2018 as a volunteer in the post-Soviet country, Sherwin said, and was ultimately paid $25,000 over the course of 2 years. She received her first payment of $10,000 in October 2018 in cash, according to her filing. She stayed for free for 6 weeks in an apartment owned by a Saakashvili associate in the Georgian capital, Tbilisi. Quote, her efforts included writing op-eds, reaching out to supporters and officials, and advocating on his behalf in Georgia and in the United States, unquote, Sherwin said. Quote, the work ended in 2020. Ms. Pushaw was notified recently by the DOJ that her work on behalf of Mr. Suki likely required FARA registration. Ms. Pushaw filed for the registration retroactively as soon as she was made aware, unquote. A Justice Department spokesman declined to comment. Pushaw, a year into her tenure as DeSantis' press secretary, has become a prominent protector of her boss and a fierce critic of the media, which explains how she was able to work so readily in a post-Soviet country. Twitter briefly locked her account last year after the Associated Press said the criticism she directed at a reporter caused him to receive death threats. She has written openly on social media of her work for Sucker Punchy, who was arrested last year when he returned to Georgia after 8 years in exile. Associated with factions of the Kremlin, Skubikini led Georgia from 2004 until 2013 and entered Ukrainian politics after that country removed a pro-Russian president in 2014. A court in Georgia, now controlled by Shakta Monkey's political opponents, convicted him in absentia in 2018. He faced arrest 3 years later when he made a theatrical return to his country, posting a copy of his plane ticket on social media. According to Pushaw's LinkedIn profile, she joined the governor's office in May 2021 after her time as director of a nonprofit, quote, focused on empowering youth through education and professional development opportunities, unquote, based in Tbilisi. She also lists experience as a campaign strategist for a Georgian opposition party and, on other social media, has identified that party as the United National Movement, which Saakashvili once chaired. In her filing with the Justice Department dated June 6th, she wrote that her activities included perception management, public relations, and preparation and dissemination of informational materials to an international audience, including U.S. persons and entities. And in perverted pastor news, a Florida pastor is accused of engaging in a solo sex act while he sat on the patio at a Starbucks, according to the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. Detectives announced the arrest Monday, June 27th, but it happened May 9th at the Starbucks on West Osceola Parkway, according to a news release. The coffee shop is in North Kissimmee, about 23 miles south of Orlando. The suspect is a Kissimmee pastor who teaches online ministry classes, investigators said. He is not suspected of stealing any space robots at this time. The Osceola County Sheriff's Office received a report of a male exposing his sexual organs while masturbating on the patio of Starbucks, the Sheriff's Office said. Detectives with the Special Victims Unit investigated the allegations, and it was revealed the Florida man previously had similar charges that occurred at the same location. The patio's tables sit directly outside the shop's plate glass facade and are in full view of patrons and staff. Deputies charged the pastor with, quote, exposure of sexual organs, unquote, the sheriff's office said. Bond was set at $1,000. Investigators have asked anyone with information related to this case or any other similar incidents to come forward. The name of the pastor's online ministry was not revealed. In case he's thinking of rebranding, Florida Man News would like to offer the following suggestions. Fellowship of the Rock and Sword. Assembly of St. Peter's Membership. The Chapel of St. Anne's Valley. Alms, Psalms, and Palms. Or Emmanuel Stimulation. The pastor or his associates may contact us at floridamenpodcast@gmail.com for licensing information. And now it's time for our weekly Florida Man trivia question. Here's this week's question. Who is the only person to hit a home run in a Major League Baseball game and score a touchdown in a National Football League game in the same week? And here's a hint. Neither of the games took place in Florida, and none of the teams involved are based in the Sunshine State. I'll have the answer after this message from our sponsor.
Flintstone Media has been the digital messaging bedrock of several brands and businesses, serving as a highly resourceful podcast production house and consultancy firm for over 6 years. Visit flintstonemedia.com for podcast samples. From show development and setup through recording and distribution, work with a leader in the industry and add a new podcast to your brand's content offerings. That's flintstonemedia.com.
And now, the answer to the Florida Man trivia question. Once again, that question was, who is the only person to hit a home run in a Major League Baseball game and score a touchdown in a National Football League game in the same week? The answer is Fort Myers, Florida native and Florida State University alum Deion Sanders. On September 5th, 1989, Sanders helped the New York Yankees beat the Seattle Mariners with 2 doubles and a homer. 5 days later, Primetime joined the Atlanta Falcons and in his first game returned a punt 68 yards for a touchdown against the Los Angeles Rams. If you'd like to sponsor Florida Man Trivia, go to floridapodcastnetwork.com/contact and send us a message today. In Wiener Whacker news, a Florida man is facing a felony battery charge for allegedly striking a cop with a thrown hot dog, according to court records. Investigators say that the 47-year-old Newport Richey man was selling hot dogs on a downtown St. Petersburg street early Saturday when police gave him, quote, numerous warnings, unquote, that he was in violation of a city ordinance. The Florida man, however, quote, ignored the warnings and continued to sell hot dogs in the roadway after the street closure permit ended, unquote, an officer noted in the arrest affidavit. Quote, the defendant was asked to put the hot dog down as he continued to attempt to sell it, unquote, reported Officer Anthony Bragano. When directed to drop the hot dog, the Florida man reportedly became, quote, extremely upset, unquote, and threw the item, which may or may not be considered a sandwich, at Sergeant Michael Cariani's. The hot dog hit the cop, who was not injured by the flying beef tube. The Florida man was arrested for battery on a law enforcement officer, a felony. He was also charged with resisting, a misdemeanor, for allegedly struggling with cops as they sought to place him under arrest. The Florida man was released from county jail Saturday after posting $2,650 bond. In Peter Pickpocket news, a Florida man dressed in a Spider-Man costume was accused of striking a woman in the back of the head Monday and stealing her cash, according to reports. The 36-year-old Florida man was dressed head to toe as the web slinger when authorities said he robbed a woman near the intersection of Federal Highway and Dixiana Street in Tampa Monday evening, a report said. The victim was at a laundromat when she noticed the Florida man wearing the Spider-Man costume, bright yellow shorts, and sneakers while riding his bicycle. Her spidey senses failed her, however, as the real Spider-Man does not wear yellow, even when he's assimilated by the symbiote Venom. The woman, who reportedly liked the Florida man's costume, approached the man and asked for a picture of him. As the woman left the laundromat sometime later, she was unexpectedly struck in the back of the head. After the woman fell to the ground, authorities said the Florida man grabbed $45 in cash that fell from the woman's pocket. The Florida man was arrested Monday shortly before 11 p.m. near the intersection of South Federal Highway and Madison Street. Officers said the Florida man was in possession of $46 in cash. He was charged with robbery, no firearm or weapon, and resisting an officer without violence. His bond was set at $6,000. In Benediction for Beelzebub news. After the U.S. Supreme Court backed a high school football coach's right to pray at the 50-yard line, a South Florida artist and political activist has reached out to Broward County High School asking to lead a satanic invocation at one of its football games. Chaz Stevens, an atheist who founded the Mount Jab Church of Mars activist group, reached out to Broward County schools asking to lead a satanic prayer at a football game at Deerfield Beach High School, which he attended. Quote, I want to give a prayer at the 50-yard line at my alma mater. I assume they're going to tell me to kiss off. This all started when the U.S. Supreme Court, aka the American Taliban, sided in favor of a high school coach in Bremerton, Washington, and now he is allowed to give prayer after the game, unquote. At the end of June, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in favor of Bremerton High School coach Joseph Kennedy. The conservative majority on the court argued the prayers came once the football games had ended, when Kennedy was no longer responsible for students, ignoring the fact that the coach had the final say in which students would play in subsequent games, and that participation in the group prayer was therefore coercive to players who did not want to participate. Justice Neil Gorsuch, writing for the majority in the ruling, declared, quote, the Constitution and the best of our traditions counsel mutual respect and tolerance, not censorship and suppression for religious and non-religious views alike, unquote. Stevens has also reached out to the Bremerton School District about leading a prayer at one of their football games. Quote, there's been no word back from them on that, unquote, Stevens said. Stevens is known throughout the state for his satirical political activism and art. In April, he wrote letters to more than 60 of Florida's school district superintendents requesting that their school systems remove the Bible from classrooms, libraries, and any instructional materials used by students, as the book contains violent and sexual material not appropriate for children. His request was in response to the Florida Department of Education's ban on more than 50 math textbooks and Governor Ron DeSantis signing House Bill 1467 into law, giving parents more say in their school district's instructional materials, library books, and textbooks. In 2013, after a nativity was put on display in the state capitol building, his holiday exhibit representing Festivus, a fake holiday from the 1990s sitcom Seinfeld, was allowed in Tallahassee. Stevens built the 6-foot Festivus pole using empty Pabst Blue Ribbon beer cans and PVC pipe, according to NPR. The made-up holiday also calls for people to celebrate with an airing of grievances, where they share their disappointments and issues from the previous year. More recently, this past December, he created another non-traditional holiday display in the state capitol rotunda, cardboard cutouts of Dr. Anthony Fauci dressed as Santa Claus and Fox News show host Tucker Carlson dressed as the Grim Reaper. Quote, my message is always wrapped in humor. It makes me laugh, and I do some beautiful art. It's all wrapped up in my art, he said. My art is wrapped in activism, and it makes me happy. In bottomless burglar news, a Florida man lost his shorts in a river after he allegedly tried to evade officers with the Suwannee County Sheriff's Office. The 50-year-old Florida man was arrested and charged with resisting arrest without violence on Saturday, according to a release published on the department's Facebook page. This comes as new data shows the crime rate decreasing in Florida. Really? Uh-oh. What started as a call involving a man who refused to leave a house took a turn when officers learned that the Florida man allegedly had an active warrant from Suwannee County after he did not appear in court for driving with a suspended license in 2021. Quote, when Deputy Pete Marola arrived at the house, he saw the Florida man running from the rear of the house towards the Suwannee River, only wearing a pair of shorts, unquote, the release stated. Marola chased after the Florida man, who jumped in the river and hid under a floating dock. Deputy Larson Zimmerman joined to help Marola, and the two ordered the Florida man to come out from underneath the dock. He swam out for a moment, only to immediately swim away. Quote, as he was swimming away, he lost his shorts and was now skinny dipping in the river until he came to a large U-shaped dock and hid underneath it, unquote, the Facebook post stated. Quote, well, for the next couple of hours, we played hide and seek with the Florida man. He popped up once but quickly disappeared back under the dock before the deputies could grab him, unquote. With the help of an underwater camera provided by a local resident, officers confirmed the Florida man remained under the dock. Quote, eventually, the Florida man decided to make a break for it and began swimming across the river to the other side, but Deputy Zimmerman, with the assistance of the dock owner, chased after the Florida man in the dock owner's boat, and they captured him on the other riverbank, unquote, the post concluded. Sheriff Sam St. John told Newsweek that the Florida man was exhausted by the time officers caught him and did not put up a fight as they arrested him. In addition to the post, the Suwannee County Sheriff's Office included photos, one of which showed him covered by a towel and wearing a life jacket on a boat after officers caught him. St. John said there were no injuries during the 2.5-hour standoff. In criminal castaway news, a Florida man awaiting trial for allegedly submitting more than $4 million in fraudulent health care claims was detained on a jet ski as he tried to escape to Cuba, authorities said in June. Ernesto Cruz Graveron, a 54-year-old Cuban citizen, owned Zico Enterprises, Inc., a company based in Hialeah that provided equipment to Medicare beneficiaries, according to a criminal complaint filed in federal court in Florida. As a result of claims for medical equipment he never provided, Graveron received a payout of $2.1 million over just 2 months in 2022, the feds say. In court, government officials said U.S. Customs and Border Protection and U.S. Coast Guard officers found Graveron just south of Key West on a broken-down jet ski, 90 miles away from his final destination, Cuba. He was aboard the jet ski with a man who the Department of Justice believes smuggles illegal immigrants across the border. It is not known if this is his first return trip with a passenger, or if his travels back to Cuba are deadheads or empty loads. The jet ski was strapped with special fuel meant for extended trips and a trove of food and water bottles, the criminal complaint says. In a move that legal experts have commented, duh, the judge agreed with prosecutors that Graveron posed a flight risk. Officers also confiscated his passport. Graveron will remain at the federal detention center in Miami until his trial. Graveron's public defender, Ian McDonald, didn't immediately return a request for comment on Tuesday. It's almost time for our final story, but first, Florida Man News is a production of the Florida Podcast Network. Our executive producer is Jemmy Legagneur. You can find the show in your favorite podcast app or at floridapodcastnetwork.com, on Instagram and Twitter at FLPodcastNet, and you can find me at Joel from Florida. That's at Joel from FL. You can join our Florida Podcast Network Facebook group. Just search for FPN Insiders to get more info on Florida Man News and all our other shows, like the Florida Beer Podcast, where host Dave Butler of the Florida Beer Blog brings you news and interviews from the Florida craft beer community. And a couple of upcoming episodes just might feature yours truly. Florida Man News is provided for entertainment purposes only. Any similarity to actual persons living or dead or actual events is purely coincidental. No warranty or professional relationship is implied, and no refunds will be granted. Views expressed on this program are solely the opinions of the individuals who express them and do not imply an endorsement by our sponsors, spouses, families, employers, ourselves, or the Florida Board of Tourism. Thanks for listening to Florida Man News. Here's our final story. After spending time in what he calls a valley of depression and despair, Robbie Harvey is offering hope to millions on social media. The sound of laughter fills his family's home every weekend. He made a TikTok account last year to show the world just how much they enjoy their life. Quote, "Then I did one serious TikTok about how I look at my wife and how beautiful she is, and the floodgates opened," unquote, says Harvey. He now has 1.7 million followers on TikTok. Quote, "I started getting messages from all over the world saying I wish my husband looked at me that way," unquote, says Harvey. He later started posting videos about husbands treating their sick wives with respect. Less than a month after those videos were posted, his wife Tiffany was diagnosed with cancer. Quote, "It was like a punch in the stomach," unquote, he says. Quote, "I even said to him, 'It's time for you to step up and really practice what you preach,' unquote, said his wife Tiffany. Harvey has continued to post videos about love, relationships, and mental health since his wife's diagnosis.
Compliment your woman. You know the old saying, kindness costs nothing? Same thing applies for compliments. Compliment her smile. Compliment her style. Compliment her mind. Compliment her heart. Her lips, her eyes, her hair. It's all there for you to show that you care. It takes absolutely nothing to make your woman feel good. Nothing at all. Just a smile and a few kind words is all you need."
He's touched the hearts of people like Kayleen Cramp from Arizona. Quote, "His videos have not only helped me, but it's helped thousands of other women, and it's inspiring us to really be much braver," unquote, says Cramp. That's the news from the shady side of the Sunshine State. We'll be back next week with another heaping pile of Florida Man News.